Hey guys, Jeff Durbin with End Abortion Now, here with Senator Joseph Silk in Oklahoma. Very excited to be here with you.
Yeah,
truly
thanks for being
honor.
here.
Yeah, so you may not like me saying this, but I'm going to say something right now. This is the hero senator that all of us have been waiting for and looking for. He actually put in something. It was what was it? 2 years ago? Two years ago. You did SB 1118, SB 1118. Yep. We put some stuff out in the past to try to notify people about that, but it was essentially shut down, dead.
It was.
And now you have SB 13.
Yes.
What's the difference?
As far as the end game of both pieces of legislation, they're essentially the same. Both Senate Bill 1118 and Senate Bill 13 would end the practice of abortion in Oklahoma. The movement and momentum behind the support for Senate Bill 13 is much larger than Senate Bill 1118 was, and Senate Bill 13 has definitely gotten a lot more attention in the legislative area of the state.
So you are fighting this from a perspective that sounds very different than is typical in the pro-life movement, pro-life rhetoric. Just this whole fight altogether. We were at the rally earlier today in the Senate in the Capitol building, and we heard things like murder. Mm-hmm. We heard things like criminalize. We heard things like abolish. Very, very different than we're used to with the pro-life movement generally. So can you explain to everybody who's watching what's the difference in terms of a pro-life track to sort of mess around the edges of abortion and what you're doing right now?
Right. So essentially, pro-life legislation, which all of the pro-life groups and even the large church institutions and those bills that those people have offered up and supported, essentially have kept abortion legal. So a good example of a pro-life bill, which you would some people would automatically think, oh, that's a good idea. So in Oklahoma we have the 72-hour waiting period. So if you find out you're pregnant and you want to go have an abortion, you have to wait 72 hours. Now, once you wait 72 hours, you go ahead and kill that baby, and it's fine. The Down syndrome bill. So you can't kill your baby just because you find out it has Down syndrome. Now, if it doesn't have Down syndrome, you go ahead and kill your baby. The ultrasound bill. If you find out you're pregnant and you want to have an abortion, you have to go view an ultrasound. Once you see the picture of the baby and you still want to kill it, go ahead. So if that makes sense, those pro-life legislation, that that we have on the books is essentially allowing abortion to legal. It really wasn't Roe v. Wade. It's pro-life legislation that's doing it. So what Senate Bill 13 does is it defines life beginning at the moment of fertilization, and it offers equal protection for that life through all stages. And so essentially a good way to look at it would be if a mother were to kill, or a dad or a doctor or anybody were to kill a 1-year-old child, they'd be held accountable for it. Yeah. Because the government needs to uphold justice. We're offering the same protections as a 1-year-old child does, down to a 3-week-old child in the womb.
So consistency.
Yeah, it's absolutely consistent. It basically just it says all life is created equal and all life deserves protection, and that's what the state of Oklahoma is going to do.
So that's very different in terms of how pro-life legislators and pro-life activists have gone about fighting this for the last 4 decades. Right. They've actually helped in many ways, and you just mentioned it in terms of keeping abortion legal at the state. It's not Roe v. Wade. It's actually the pro-life legislation that actually promotes and helps and activates the whole problem.
Right.
You're actually speaking in terms of consistency. Consistency, of course, for the Christian worldview. Consistency under the law itself, and consistency with biological science. From the moment of conception, all the biological components of a human being are there from conception. All human life we protect.
Right.
Now that's supposed to be normative, but it's not for the unborn.
Right.
And I think this is an interesting point to be made in terms of as people are thinking about now this shift of the paradigm shift, the mindset shift in terms of consistency. In New York recently, they're celebrating and applauding because we can kill it to birth. And people are shocked by that. And of course we should be shocked by it. Of course it's horrible, and dismembering a little baby is an awful, evil thing, and it's extra bloody. But they were fighting for consistency the whole time. That's one of the things the pro-life movement, I think, has lost in this, is that while we've been in the pro-life movement playing around the edges and trying to make this soft and don't be too aggressive, this could die, sort of a thing, the pro-choicers and people who are pro-abortion have been fighting for consistency. They say, I ought to be able to kill an unborn child. So what's the difference between 20 weeks or 40 weeks?
Right.
So what you're doing here is a consistent bill consistent with the law itself, consistent with biological science. That's a human being from conception. It cannot be refuted, and it ought to be protected.
Right. No, that's exactly right. I mean, it's essentially taking the Constitution. Our Constitution protects life, and it's saying all life, no matter what stage you are in, deserves the right to be protected by the government, and that's what Senate Bill 13 does.
Right. So this is a bill that would actually flat out end abortion in the state of Oklahoma.
That's exactly what it would do. If Senate Bill 13 were to pass the legislature and be signed into law, immediately upon signage, all abortions would have to cease in the state of Oklahoma.
Now, I need everyone to stop for a minute and to think about what was just said. This isn't legislation that is going to keep abortion legal in some circumstances. This is going to criminalize, end, abolish, completely done. Abortion is over in Oklahoma.
That's exactly right.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all shooting for, supposed to be.
Yeah.
So what's your opposition?
So we have two oppositions right now. Naturally, you have the far left, extremely liberal, the people who are celebrating the New York legislation, stuff like that, the Planned Parenthood folks, that they're completely opposed to Senate Bill 13. But we also have the pro-life organizations that are actively opposing Senate Bill 13.
Pro-life organizations are opposing a bill to end abortion.
Yeah, well, it's important to note, and up until recently, within the last couple of years, people didn't understand that the pro-life organizations, National Right to Life, Oklahomans for Life, and other ones, their goal was never to end abortion, and it never has been. That's why their legislation has never been aimed at ending abortion. And they are opposing Senate Bill 13 because it does indeed end abortion, and they are just terrified that we would actually do that, and that it could possibly be thrown out in the courts, and there's a lot of legal stuff we can talk about, but that's why the pro-life organizations are in absolute opposition to Senate Bill 13 because it would end abortion.
And this is important too in terms of reference. If you guys would go back, when you did SB 1118 years ago, we found out that there was some opposition coming from National Right to Life, Vice President Tony Lowinger, sweet man, but we saw there was opposition, so we were able to get a phone call with him. That's available for you guys if you just go search Jeff Durbin and Tony Lowinger. You'll see that interview to confirm what the senator is saying right now. So what's interesting here is that you'll often hear, well, Senator, if SB 13 is actually signed into law, then that does away with all the pro-life legislation. All these years of hard work, everything that we've worked for is just erased.
Yeah, and it has to be, because it's that pro-life legislation that's keeping abortion legal. So
can you say that one more time?
It's the pro-life legislation that we have put on the books over the past 42 years that is keeping abortion legal. So a lot of people try to kick it back to Roe v. Wade, and they'll say, well, I wish Roe v. Wade would be overturned, which it never will be. They will not overturn Roe v. Wade. But let's just suppose that the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade tomorrow. Oklahoma would still have abortions legal because of the pro-life legislation. And that's what you've got to understand. It's not Roe v. Wade. It's the pro-life legislation that is protecting the abortion industry.
So the way to end abortion is at the state level.
Exactly. Yeah, the states have the legal authority to stand up and say, we are going to uphold the Constitution, and we as a state will no longer tolerate or legalize or allow the murder of innocent children, because the Supreme Court does not have the authority to authorize that or make that legal. And that's a question that I ask a lot of legislators that, campaign on being pro-life. Be like, do you think that the state of Oklahoma or any other state has to have the permission and the blessing of the Supreme Court to protect innocent children? And they usually can't answer that question.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we need to know how we can help.
Right.
This is an issue of justice. It's an issue of mercy. It's an issue that surrounds the fundamental basis of life and truth and human dignity and value. And it is the mission of my life right now to make sure that we can be a blessing to you and to help you and to serve you. So where are we at? Help everyone to know that's watching this right now. We want you to partner with Senator Silk to get this passed and to bring justice, at least to start with, in one state, Oklahoma. And then we know it'll spread from there. But where are we at right now? Help us understand where are we at right now, how much time do we have, and then what do we need to do to partner with you to help bring justice to Oklahoma? Okay,
so right now Senate Bill 13 has been, the first step is it has been assigned to Health and Human Services Committee. Okay. The chairman, so in Oklahoma, the chairman of that committee has the authority to allow that bill to be heard and debated and voted on, or he also has the authority to block it and say, no, we're not even going to discuss this bill. I have had conversations with him. He hasn't told me we're not going to hear it, but he also hasn't committed that he will hear it. So right now, that's where it sits. It sits waiting to be heard in the Health and Human Services Committee. So what has to happen is Senator Jason Smalley, he's the chairman, he needs to hear from everyone. His email box needs to be flooded. Please give Senate Bill 13 a hearing, call his office. He is the one person right now that is solely responsible for the fate of abolishing abortion in Oklahoma.
So let's hang there for 1 second. Senator Smalley, S-M-A-L-L-E-Y.
Correct.
Senator Smalley needs to hear from the entire nation. And it's important. It's not important for you to notify them where you're from. What's important is that you send emails right now, this very moment. Do not wait till later to do it. Don't say, I'll plan on getting to it in 5 minutes. As you're watching this, start developing that email, get the email ready. And in the subject line, you want to say, here, SB 13.
Correct.
Immediately.
Yeah.
So that would be the subject line, here, SB 13, immediately. Make sure you have a body to the email and a signature. Again, you don't need to necessarily tell them where you're from. You just need to immediately write that email to Smalley.
Senator Jason Smalley, yes.
Okay, to Senator Jason Smalley, and the email was,
it's Smalley at oksenate.gov.
Smalley at oksenate.gov. Smalley at oksenate.gov. Do it right now, and then also they can contact Senator Smalley's office.
They can.
And call and say, hear the bill.
Yep, so if you go to oksenate.gov, you can go to legislators, you can pull up his office number and try to talk to him directly over the phone, and you can also verify you have the correct email and everything else.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so then what comes after that? The world sends Senator Smalley messages, and he hears it on the floor.
Okay, so say this works, Senator Smalley says, okay, the people have spoken, we're going to hear this bill. The very next step is we have to lobby the committee members. So at that time, again, go to oksenate.gov, look for committees, and it'll have standing committees, the Health and Human Services Committee. So you can contact, I think there's maybe 10 people on there, contact all those people, vote yes for Senate Bill 13, vote yes for Senate Bill 13. And so we have to lobby the committee. Once that's done, then we can move on to the next committee. And we have about 2.5 weeks to make all that happen. Okay,
excellent. That's probably good for now, right?
Yes,
okay.
Right now that's good because those are two really big steps.
Important steps. Very good. So I want everyone just to hear this. Very important. This is an issue of partisan politics. This isn't about, hey, everybody rally around Senator Joseph Silk and make sure you put a sign in your yard and vote for Senator Silk, even though, you know, we hope the best for you there. This is an issue of justice and righteousness and truth in the land. And the way that we can support right now is not merely through prayer, but yes, please pray for Senator Silk, please pray for his family, please pray for the team that's around him, supporting him and helping right now. But the way that we can help right now is actually putting legs to all this. And that is by sending a message to Senator Smalley at smalley@oksenate.gov. Subject line, here, SB 13 immediately. Make a body to the email and then just sign it. We need 1 million emails to go to Senator Smalley immediately. And of course, again, through the prayer and then the actual legs to this, put it in action, actually send the email, make a phone call, and that's what'll get us to the next step.
That's right.
And the goal here for you is what? And I'll just get real personal. Why are you doing this? Are you crazy? What's wrong with you?
Well, actually, a lot of people ask that. They're like, you know, why are you doing that? And it's one of those things. I ran for office on. I look at abortion as the greatest sin that our country has committed. I mean, it's even worse than slavery. Slaughtering innocent children. It's unbelievable. And obviously, just to stand up for basic human rights and say, let's protect innocent children. That's the reason I ran for office. I quickly found out that the way that groups are doing it is inadequate and incorrect and causing to the problem. So that's why. I mean, I would much rather be at home playing with my kids right now, but somebody has to do this.
You know what's amazing? Is you're not really radical. This isn't radical.
No.
It's just what we've been saying all along.
Right.
It's just consistent.
Yep.
And I want to thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to thank you for your faithfulness. I'm going to thank you for your consistency. I'm going to thank you for your standing for justice.
Yeah.
We're with you. We're behind you.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.